The stench was overwhelming. Flies were swarming all around us, trying to weasel their way into any open orifice they could find. The streets were flowing with open sewage. We had to watch where we were stepping so we didn't step into it. Garbage was everywhere. We were in a very unique part of New Delhi, and we were being led by a wonderful woman into a work that they were doing with these impoverished people. She had been working for quite a while helping these impoverished people. They'd launched a school for the untouchable children, the kids that were considered refuse. They weren't worthy of education. They're cast-offs. She'd started a school and helped them to learn and discover who they are and what they have to contribute. And now she was leading us into a part of this area where the rag pickers lived. And rag pickers are those people who live in the dump, who live amidst the garbage, and they try to find any scrap of recyclable material that they can exchange for money. And we're about to meet one of the bright shining lights that we would encounter in India. Her name was Salma. She was 14 years old, and she had the most beautiful smile amidst the garbage. She lived there with her widowed mother in a little home made out of cardboard that's smaller than most of the bedrooms that we live in or that we sleep in here today. And Salma was amazing in many respects. And as we were introduced to her through the interpreter, she began to giggle in a way. And we didn't understand why she's giggling and smiling and giggling. We thought, well, what's going on? What have we done wrong? Well, she discovered that our oldest son, David, at the time was 14. And she looked at how big David was. He was a giant compared to her. And she just thought, oh, he's so big, so big. Of course, she was so small due to malnourishment, because there are some days when she didn't eat. And when she did eat, it certainly wasn't the kind of nourishing food that we would ingest on a regular basis. And Salma was participating in a very unique program to teach her how to be an artisan by this woman that was running this project. Salma would do beadwork on panels that would be sewn into bags. And those bags would be sold to tourists to raise money, and then that money would be poured back into the work in New Delhi. And Salma changed our family that day in Delhi. In fact, our oldest son had an epiphany. He looked at Salma and he realized she's the same age as me. And the things that I take for granted every day, food, clean water, sanitation, a safe and secure home, education, resources, Salma doesn't have access to that. And he said, if I have access to all of that, then I've got to understand I've got a responsibility to somehow contribute to the betterment of other people who don't have the kind of access that we have. We had taken our family on what we called the MacLean family global educational odyssey. My wife Ann and I and our two sons, David and Benjamin, over the course, we took them out of school for 2 years. Ann homeschooled them. She's a teacher, and she now teaches teachers at the university. But we wanted to give our sons an exceptional educational experience, to do what we could to engage them in an incredible educational experience around the world. And we traveled over the course of 2 years to 7 different countries on over 24 trips to over 200 destinations. We traveled over 115,000 kilometers. And we did some really cool things. I think you heard a bit of that. We swam with sharks. We rappelled down waterfalls in the Costa Rican rainforest. We explored what National Geographic calls the most biodiverse region on the planet. But one of our key objectives was to engage with need around the world, because there's a lot of needy people around the world. And we wanted our sons to understand, and we wanted to understand, that we've got a responsibility to somehow contribute to the betterment of this need around the world. Because we believe there's only 2 ways that we can live our lives. 1, we can spend ourselves for the benefit of others, or 2, we can spend others for our own benefit. And one of the things we did as part of this global educational odyssey was we led the boys in writing and illustrating children's books. So each of them wrote a children's book. Benjamin's book was called Goodbye Zoo. David's book was called Jeffy's World Safari. And what Benjamin did was he made plasticine images that we shot digital photos of. David drew them in pencil crayon. Benjamin's book was the story of Billy. And Billy goes to the zoo with his mom. And when they get to the zoo, they realize it's starting to close, so Billy's got to say goodbye to all the animals. It's a rhyming book. Toodaloo, kangaroo. It's been a laugh, tall giraffe. See ya, hyena. Cool little ride. Well, we used to say that when we'd say goodnight, we'd do that. So it came naturally. And David's book was Jeffy's World Safari, where a 21-year-old young man named Jeffy traveled the world to discover all different kinds of groups of animals. Pod of whales, a crash of rhinos, a parliament of owls, a bevy of quail. And what we did was we took these books and we created a website where we sold the books online and we donated the proceeds from the books to endangered species organizations and a global children's charity called Hope for the Nations. And then we donated hundreds of copies of books to Hope for the Nations that they could distribute around the world to their children's home, because they work with children at risk and orphans in over 20 countries around the world. And that was our way in the midst of all this to somehow give back. And when we traveled, we built houses for impoverished people, and we worked in some orphanages. And whenever we did, we'd bring the books with us. And in northern India, there's a very special children's home called Shanti Niketan. We visited there with another family and spent time there working in the school, and took over the school and taught and modeled for the teachers different ways that they can teach, because they hadn't really had formalized teacher training. And the boys helped out in the school. They read their books to all the kids and then worked in small groups to help teach them different, English and all the different exercises that Anne was doing. The boys were her teaching assistants. And then at the end, we gave books to every student in the lower grades. And it was just a fabulous opportunity for us to connect and engage with these kids at a deep level. And I found myself asking, what can I do? What can I do that's unique to me to help contribute to these incredible kids? And David and Benjamin, I had just been leading them on a transition from boyhood to young manhood, because I believe we're born male, but we have to choose to be men. So we had been learning, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to take courage and initiative? What does it mean to resist passivity? What does it mean to accept responsibility? What does it mean to press on toward a goal? What does it mean to serve and love people? And what does it mean to seek and love God? So we talked about these things with the older kids. We would meet with the older boys, 13 years of age and up, spent a couple of hours every day talking with them about this. And at one point in time, we did something really cool. I said to the guys, "Who wants a father hug?" And they looked at me, and they call you uncle. They said, "Uncle, what's a father hug?" I said, "Of course," because these kids had been abandoned by their parents, or they were truly orphaned. They'd never had a father. So I asked David to come up, and I just gave David a big hug and said, "David, I love you." And when they saw that, the stampede happened. Uncle, I want a father hug, I want a father hug. And we just stayed there for I don't know how long, embracing every young man, saying, "You are loved. You are valuable. You are worthy and worthwhile." It was a profound experience that deeply changed me and made an impact in them to know that people had come from way across the world really to say, "We love you. You're valuable and worthwhile." And as we were walking with these young men back up to the main facility, one of them took my hand, and he looked up at me and he said, "Uncle, you are no longer my uncle. You are now my father." And it broke my heart. But it's in simple ways that we can change people's lives. Profound change can take place in very simple ways, by living open-heartedly and wholeheartedly. And at the end, we threw a banquet, because these kids normally live on rice and dal every day. They get an egg once a week, and they'd get chicken once a month. So we bought a whole bunch of stuff, put on this banquet, and then they put on a dance party with Indian music. Do you know how to dance the Indian way? It's all in the shoulders. So we were dancing, having a great time with these kids, dancing all over. And at one point, they grabbed Benjamin, and they picked Benjamin up over their heads. They're dancing around. Benjamin's on top of their hands, and he sees me. He says, Dad, this is the best day of my life." And this is what we discovered, that our happiness best grows when it's transplanted in the soil of other people's lives. that we are meant to be spent for the benefit of others. That when we spend ourselves for the benefit of others, we make a difference in their lives. There is a fulfillment and a joy and a happiness that just bubbles up and comes out of you. It was a profound experience. One of the other things we'd heard about, there's a wonderful couple from Vernon who oversee a children's home in Burundi. They care for orphaned Congolese children who are victims of the war in the East Congo, who've seen incredible butchery committed before their eyes. These kids had lost the color in their life. They'd lost hope. And I met the house parent who was on sabbatical in Vernon, and she said, I want to tell you something. We received your son's books, and we used them to change the lives of these orphans. And I said, how did you do that? And she said, we gave the books to the kids, and we showed them, these are kids like you who made the art. And they started to do art therapy with these kids. They started to bring color back into their life from something as simple as seeing drawings of other kids. And these kids came alive and began to get hope and life and color again from simply seeing other kids had drawn art and made these books. So I want to ask you, how can you spend yourself for the benefit of others? You have the same three things to give that everybody in this room has, that we have. 1, we have time. 2, we have talent. And 3, we have treasure. Everybody has this to give. All of us have 24 hours in the day. Nobody's got any more time. Everybody's got a unique talent that you can give. You've got gifts and abilities that are unique to you that you can contribute to make a difference. Things you're passionate about, things you're interested in, things that you love that you can give open-heartedly and passionately to other people. And we all have resource. Some people have way more resource than others. But I'll tell you something, the resources we have can make a massive difference in the developing world. Many of the things we take for granted, they don't have. You are uniquely you. What you have to give is unique. And I want to encourage you, don't try to be somebody else. They're already taken. Be you. Be uniquely you, what you have to give. Because nobody else can give that. Don't ever look at yourself and say, oh, I don't have anything to give. You do. And it's different from everybody else, and we need who you are. They need who you are. We together need each other. And the work that we are doing with the boys' books and overseas, the media heard of this. So the boys got interviewed on television. And the interviewer, the anchor person, turned to Benjamin and said, so Benjamin, man, you're 13, you're traveling the world, you published a book, you're changing the world, what's the big learn? And Benjamin says, well, I've learned that we're incredibly privileged. And with that privilege comes the responsibility to contribute to the betterment of other people's lives. That's kind of what I learned. And I thought, it's all worth it. Everything that we've done, the inconvenience that we went to try to do this exceptional educational experience was worth it. And afterwards I said to Benjamin, hey, Benjamin, that was awesome. Where did you come up with that? And he said, well, Dad, I thought of Spider-Man. I said, well, what is that? What do you mean, Spider? He said, well, Dad, you remember that scene when his uncle's dying? You know, his uncle got shot, and Spider-Man's holding him down on the ground and looking at him, and his uncle looks up and says, Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. That's where he came up with great privilege, like we all have. There's great responsibility to contribute to the betterment of other people's lives. We all have much to give. I don't care if you're a kid or a king, a prince or a pauper, a politician or a plumber, a teacher or a lion tamer. You got something to offer. Everybody's got something to offer, no matter who you are. I love what Albert Schweitzer had to say about this. He says, I don't know what your destiny is going to be, but this one thing I do know. The only ones who are going to be truly happy are those who discover, seek out how they can serve others. Really, what he was saying was we're meant to be spent for the benefit of others. That our happiness best grows when it's transplanted in the soil of other people's lives. I love what Robert Frost said. There were two paths that diverged in the wood. Spend yourself for the benefit of others, or spend others for your own benefit. And he encourages us, take the one less traveled. It will make all the difference. Choose to spend yourself for the benefit of others. It will make all the difference. Understand that you're meant to be spent for the benefit of others. And you will change the world one person at a time. And you will discover that your happiness best grows when it's transplanted in the soil of other people's lives. So I want to ask you one question as we finish. What will you choose to do today that will help make somebody else's life better? We can do that. And if we do, the world changes one person at a time. We're meant to be spent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.